In this video, what I'm going to show you is how to use Gsap in React to toggle a timeline to play it forward and then on the same click, play it in reverse. You can do this in regular old JavaScript and CSS, but I want to show you how to do it in Gsap and in React because React obviously has become, a solid framework. And Gsap, if you incorporate it, although you can do it more simply, if you start using Gsap, you can do much more sophisticated and complicated animation. So it's good to just use it. Let me show you quickly what I'm going to do. And the use case is very common to toggle a state and then reverse it, such as in a hamburger menu click. So for example, if you look at here, typically you have like a regular old hero, and then on click of the hamburger menu, you click, roll down a menu, and then you click it, and then it goes away. What's cool about Gsap here is that you can play the timeline, and then with a simple reverse function, it could reverse everything without you having to redo all the CSS or animations to tell it to go backward. Without further ado, let's get started. We have the header right here, and then we have the menu that's going to drop down in its own component. First, we have to initiate a click, grab that state, send it to the expanded menu component, which actually is the drop down. First, let's go ahead and create the state, right? The state which doesn't exist yet on click. So we're going to say here, const menu clicked, set menu clicked, and we're going to give it a false value initially. Now make sure that you have imported the use state at the top. On click, let's go ahead and grab the click of the hamburger menu. So go to wherever your button is, but in this case I have the hamburger icon, which is this one right here. So on click, nothing happened. We're going to go ahead and use the on click equals, and then we're going to give it a function called handle menu clicked. Name it whatever you want. Now that doesn't exist, so if I refresh here, you got an error. So on click, I want to execute this function, which basically lets me know that this has been clicked on. So I'm going to go up here under here, and I'm going to go ahead and create the function. So call it function. I'm going to copy and paste the name so I don't misspell it, and then I'm going to click save. Now the error went away because we actually have the function, but nothing happened. We're going to say set menu clicked. And what we want to do here is not set it to true, because what I want it to do is toggle itself every time it's clicked to reverse the state. So right now the state is false, but I don't want to set it to true because once you click it once, it'll always become true. So what we want to do here is set it to the opposite of whatever its current state is, right? So now menu clicked is false. So when you click, it'll become true. Then when you click again, it'll become false, and it'll just keep reversing itself. If you click here, obviously you can't see the state, but if I console log this should be fine. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and console log that so we can just be sure. That's something you always want to do, is definitely just go ahead and console log just to be sure. Now, if you go here on click, you look at the bottom, it's false, true, false, true, keeps going. One thing is the state sometimes gets delayed, but it's actually executing appropriately. What we want to do is pass that state to our component. Now, you could do this right on this page if you only have one component, but I separate a lot of my stuff into multiple components, so I'm going to send this to the other drop-down menu to let it know that, hey, this is the state now. So I'm going to call the prop toggle. So I'm going to pass this as a prop. I'm literally just passing the state into the expanded menu. So now I'm going inside my expanded menu component where nothing is really happening here, except I have the section that just drops down. It's blue, it just expands itself full height, and it has a ref called menu. So we know what the prop is called, const toggle, right? Because we grabbed it from the other one. I'm going to call it, you could change the name here, but I'm also going to call it what it was, which props.toggle. So now we have the state that's being passed in here as the click happens. Okay, I'll actually move this up here. Like to bring my use refs to the top. Now we want to make the timeline, which typically in Gsap we call it TL. You could call it whatever you want, but we're going to call const TL equals use ref. Now this was one of the big issues because I had a problem with the timelines constantly they're constantly mounting over and over. So we want to make it a use ref. What we're going to have is two use effects hooks. We're going to have one that happens when the component loads. Then we're going to have one that executes as the toggle state changes. So first one we're going to have is where we just want to put our timeline here, and we're going to give it the empty array. So it's happening only when it component mounts. All right. Now we're going to be creating the timeline. All right. TL.current is the name of the variable, and we're going to say equals. Okay. So Gsap, this is just common Gsap, and we're going to make it paused on true because you don't want this to execute as this component mounts. So now we just have a Gsap timeline. It's in a pause state. We're going to give it the conditions of what it should do when it actually executes. So it's going to be TL.current, and we use the to. So we're going to say from whatever its state is to whatever it is, and it is the menu that we're talking about here that we want to place this on, which is the menu called .current because it's in a use ref. And now we're going to give it the states, and we want to change it from top to 0. So if you let me show you my expanded menu CSS. So the condition is I have it position fixed, but you can't see it. It's hidden. It's above negative 100 VH, so it's above the browser viewport. So what I want to happen is as this timeline runs, I want to drop it down. I want to drop the whole thing down. So again, it's height 100 VH, so it's going to take up the whole viewport when it drops down. Duration, I want it to be, something that looks smooth, is 0.7. I don't want it to be too long. And that's it. So now we have basically timeline created, what should happen when the timeline executes, but it's in a pause state, so it's not going to run. Now we want to create another use effect that runs on the toggle state. So we want this to happen as this toggle state keeps readjusting itself. So we're going to say if the toggle state is true, we're going to say TL.current.play. If it's reverse, we're going to do, let's just say nothing. On toggle it's true, and then play, and then nothing for now because I want to show you the reverse method. So let's just make sure, let's hit play. Oh, great. So if we hit that hamburger menu, you see it happening. But again, it's not reversing it, just it's dropping down and the state's happening. Now what we want to do is, as it's not true, let's do reverse. So you're going to say TL.current.reverse. And it should reverse itself. So let's refresh here. Let's just make sure it's good to go. Hit the hamburger menu, hit it again. Nice. And it's just dropping, reversing, dropping, reversing. Now what I love about this is that if you start having all these other animations, if you run this timeline and then it'll just all reverse in such a smooth way. Make sure that your state is being passed appropriately. So always console log to make sure you know what the state is. So if your state's wrong, everything won't work and you won't know whether it's Gsap or your state. Make sure the timeline is paused if you don't want it to load right away. Also make sure your Gsap timeline is not running with the toggle state, creating itself only on the first mount and not constantly recreating itself. That's pretty much it. Guys, I hope you like this. If you want more Gsap tutorials, more Next.js React tutorials, go and subscribe and drop down in the comments below what else you want. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you in the next video.